Hey there, this is Natalie, and it's time for the English summary of ReZero Arc 7, Chapter 5. And I'm not sure what to make of the title Google Translate has given for this one, because it's Man is Hard. As always, please remember to subscribe if you want to see more of these summaries for the new chapters of Arc 7 as they're released, as well as ReZero theories, analysis, and coverage of the anime. My video about yesterday's new episode, Season 2, Episode 17, is up, so please consider checking that out too. And now, on with the new chapter. Other than Chapter 1, each chapter so far has started with a slice-of-life type memory from a less stressful time, where Subaru had an interaction that wasn't previously shown in the story, and which has some relevance to the current situation. Arc 7, Chapter 5 is no exception, and it seems I was wrong to think we were actually getting through the opening chapters of an arc without some Petra. Here she dumps some dirty water out of the window while she's cleaning and accidentally drenches Subaru, who's doing some gardening. Subaru strips off to wash himself at a tap in the gardens, thinking he's alone, and he should be clean before changing into the clean clothes Petra's going to bring him, but it turns out Ryuuzu is there. Google Translate calls her the Crown, but it's Ryuuzu. They have a bit of embarrassed banter about Subaru being naked, and she says he isn't so bad, so I guess she's nicer in this sort of situation than Ram. They then talk about how Garfield and Frederica have had their reconciliation, so this is probably sometime after the interlude stuff at the start of Arc 5. They also talk about whether Ryuuzu is lonely, where she lives on Roswaal's land, but not in the mansion with Garfield. Subaru talks about how Garf is still young, and it can be hard for young people without their families, speaking from his own experience. And Ryuuzu asks if he's talking about someone at the mansion who's even younger than Garfield, at which point Petra arrives. Petra's bringing Subaru's clothes, but he's still naked, and she blushes and hides her face, but it says she's still looking through the gaps in her fingers, and then it says Petra is excited, and she says, wow. Google Translate is really turning this chapter into a comedy so far. There's some talk of age and how Subaru's keeping his diary of how much Beatrice is developing, something that was mentioned in Arc 5, but how he's never been able to keep a diary before. But the main theme of the conversation, given it harkens back to what Ryuuzu and Subaru were discussing, is whether Petra is lonely. They're at the second Roswaal mansion that the Amelia faction moved to after Arc 4, and so she's further away from her parents now. She says that sometimes she gets lonely, but she decided she wanted to do the job, so she's going to do it. Subaru praises her for this, because again, it wouldn't be the start of an arc without a scene where everyone praises Petra, and he gives her a hug, noting that she's a lot heavier than Beatrice, where of course Beatrice doesn't grow and Petra does. I think he put on some clothes before hugging her. In any case, the scene now changes to where Chapter 4 left off. Subaru is looking at the snake, which has been stopped from striking but not killed by the arrow, and wondering why the hunter shot at it, saving him and Louis. He thinks it's hard to imagine the hunter is going to be like a shonen manga villain and announce that he is to be the one who kills Subaru, so he can only reason that the hunter was for some reason helping him. The snake has turned towards the direction of the arrow and is heading to attack the hunter, who shoots another arrow at it. It gets closer, its fangs drooling, and the hunter, who it seems is too far away for Subaru to get a good look at, though he can see what's happening, darts away and shoots again at closer range. Meanwhile, Subaru carries Louis and jumps into the pit where Rem is. He says they should escape, but Rem refuses to come with him until she knows Louis will be safe, so even though she's annoying him, he ties Louis to his back using his whip. Rem seems to be unable to walk again, so he picks her up, even though she's still not really persuaded she wants to go with him, and he tries to run away while the hunter's still fighting the snake, assuming whichever of the two wins, they'll be after him next. He hopes it's the hunter, because the snake will be able to track him whatever he does due to the scent of the witch. He breaks some branches in a different direction to the way he wants to run, to try to throw off the hunter if he comes after him, and then escapes in another direction, still carrying Rem. It reminds him of another time when he had to run through a forest escaping from demon beasts, though that time it had been Ram he was carrying. Running on, Subaru is exhausted from the weight of carrying Rem and Louis, but he keeps going. Rem alerts him to the fact she can hear the sound of running water, however, so with the fresh hope that they may have at least found a water source to help them survive, he heads in that direction. However, when they get to where the sound is coming from, the river is at the bottom of a 10-metre drop. To make matters worse, the snake cries out in the distance, and while he can't tell if it's a sound of victory or defeat, this makes him think that the fight between the hunter and the witchbeast has ended, and now one of them will be in pursuit. Rem tells Subaru to leave her, because he clearly can't go on carrying them both, but he refuses. He knows he can't leave Louis either, even though he's resenting her presence more by the minute because of what Rem's reaction would be. He decides that the only thing they can do is jump into the river and hope for the best, despite the fact he and Rem are both weakened and Louis is unconscious. They argue about this for a minute, but Subaru promises he won't die because he's Rem's hero. Then they jump. In the water, Subaru clings on to Rem and realises that Louis is still safely attached, but he's scrabbling to survive, without the energy or mental clarity to swim. He remembers all of his friends and thinks about how Petrash would save him now if she was here, of how he hopes everyone is okay, and how he needs to get back to them, to help the people in Pristella and to support Emilia in the election. Through his panicked, muddled thoughts, he manages to grab a branch with his free hand, the one with the 3 broken fingers, and pull himself towards it. He makes it out onto the riverbank and coughs up water. He can feel Louis is breathing on his back, but at first Rem isn't breathing. He tries to resuscitate her and she spits out some water. Realising everyone is basically safe, his exhaustion gets the better of him and he passes out. Unfortunately, when he wakes up, it's with someone's shoe being forced into his mouth. He tries to open his eyes, but he seems to have been blindfolded. Whoever it is with the toe of their boot in his mouth calls him a rebel and asks if he knows his position. He removes the shoe from his mouth and kicks him hard before spitting on the ground. Now Subaru realises that his arms and legs have been tied up too. 2 men are talking in front of him, one of them the man who kicked him, and then Subaru hears a gentler voice saying they'll remove the blindfold, but can't untie his arms and legs for now. Subaru doesn't respond, but this man removes his blindfold, and Subaru sees he's in some kind of military camp, with rows of tents and bonfires, and men with armour and swords. The man who removed his blindfold now says to him that he just found him when he went to collect water, and apologises, saying he's now a prisoner of war. The chapter ends with the line, "Natsuki Subaru was taken prisoner." Well, that was an interesting turn of events. We still don't know who the hunter is, but now Subaru's been captured by an army, and we don't know what became of Louis and Rem yet. This arc is definitely keeping interesting things happening, that's for sure. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed and ring the bell if you want to be notified when the summary of the next chapter is uploaded. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.